Let's dive more into the Pacers draftees with someone who scouts all year long, Cam Jones and Taelon Peter. More under the microscope with Ben Pfeifer of Sportscasting today on Locked On Pacers.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Friday / weekend whenever this comes out, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, more coverage of the draft and the Pacers selections in it. Cam Jones, Taelon Peter. I finally had time to watch full games of both players, really dive into some of the numbers, get under the hood on both of them, and see what made them prospects the Pacers consider drafting. But I have been watching these guys for about 3 days. Ben Pfeifer, our guest today, has been watching them for years. He's a draft guy and among my favorites, and was a Pacers fan as a kid. He watched Cam Jones when he was on Marquette with Tyler Kolek and in different contexts. And we get into a lot about Jones, what makes him so effective, why Ben was very excited when the Pacers picked him. And then we talked Taelon Peter and his crazy stats, his shooting, what makes him so good, and the other skills that he'll need to get better at in the pros. A deep dive into the Pacers draftees. Let's just get right to it. Cam Jones, Taelon Peter, they're Pacers. I finally have time to watch them play full basketball games, but someone who's watched way more of them than me is here, my favorite draft guy. Every year we get to do a draft thing, and then this year the Pacers made Game 7 of the finals. I didn't have time to do any pre-draft stuff. It's Ben Pfeifer. You know him from years of me and him yelling about the Thompson twins, and I think you did the Brandon Clark episode with me. Who did we do last year? I can't even remember. Ben, how are you?
I'm all right. I mean, just like all of us, still reeling from the finals loss, but it's at least nice for me that we go straight from that into the draft, so I don't have any time to dwell and mope about that. But that'll come eventually. So,
yeah, you were very distracted, I'm sure, the entire time. You know what also was distracting for me, Ben, is watching your draft stream as the Pacers picked 38 and picked one Cam Jones from Marquette, and you were hyped.
I was hyped.
As a former Pacers fan. I believe you were quite high. Did you have a first-round grade on Cam Jones? Was he in your top 30?
Yep.
What about him do you like so much?
Yeah, it was fun to get hyped about a Pacers pick because I feel like they often don't take the players I like. They end up getting good players. They're just often not always the ones that I think are going to be good. But yeah, Cam is awesome. I think he was the highest rated player on my board when the Pacers took him. So obviously awesome value. He's super funky. He's very hard to compare to. And I wonder if he fell because of that. 6'3", 6'6" wingspan, combo-ish, absurd finisher, absurd footwork and craft, incredible touch, incredible passer, shooting down this year, but he's played a bunch of different roles and thrived throughout college basketball. Nothing particularly special as a defender, but I think he's fine positionally. I don't think he's going to kill you, and I don't know, or he's going to add a tons of value, but really fun depth guard pick who I think has potential to be a low end average starter at some point, which would obviously be a sick to get, at 38. But yeah, Cam, also just one of my favorite players to watch this year. It has a game I really like that's, independent from my evaluation of him, just a player I enjoy watching. And I think the Pacers fans will really like. But yeah, Cam is the best. I love Cam. I was very, very hyped when they drafted him. That was one where I'm turning off my notifications and, looking at the TV so I can see Mark Tatum say his name.
And he walked across and he put on a Spurs hat. Thank you, NBA, very much for that.
It's the worst thing ever. It's
so dumb. Here, a question that I want the league to answer. Why do we have to do hats at all? Why?
I don't know. And if you have to, it feels like such an easy fix. I get the trades aren't technically finalized. I guess that's the reason, but it feels like such an easy fix. How often do these trades happen on draft night and then not go through? Almost.
Yeah, that's the thing. If they their worry would be that it falls apart and then the opposite happens, or there's a picture of him in the other. It's you already have a picture of him in the wrong.
I was going to say you already have the opposite problem as is. So regardless.
Anyway, So I watched 2 full games, and Xavier. Wow, I'm in trouble. A Xavier game, and then they played Georgia in the Bahamas in the Battle for Atlantis. Everybody's favorite thing. So very funky player. The first shot I ever saw him make was a lefty underhand floater. I was like, oh, okay, interesting. The first thing that jumps out if you watch any Marquette is like every play. Here he comes across half court, ball screen. Here it comes across half court, ball screen. Here it comes across half court, double drag. A lot of stuff that like felt very familiar from watching a lot of Pacers, ironically, in terms of like
Shaka Smart is great.
Scheme. Yeah, Shaka Smart is a very sharp offensive-minded coach, and put him in a lot of like, I don't know what you feel, but I would say NBA level offensive stuff, right? Which is good for quicker translation to the pros.
Definitely.
If you go to a Synergy page, excuse me, I'm tripping all over my words right now. 291 points off of pick and roll ball handler possessions last year. He ranked in the 99th percentile in terms of the percentage of time that he ran pick and rolls in college last year. So he was near the top, right? And he was very good at them, right? As both a distributor and a scorer. That is, I think, the bread and butter of his game, and where he operates pretty well. It's just like a head up, better scorer than passer, but effective guy handling around screens. And they were like, yep, do it over and over and over again. We're not Tyler Kolek anymore. And he's like, okay, I can do that. Good. But he had really good synergy with his bigs in general, like when that translated into handoffs or him running off of screens, especially if you go back a year with the more of the off-screen stuff. But he finished plays really well off of screens, even in his 5th year when he was like full-time point guard post-Kolek. So I came away more impressed with the on-ball stuff than I realized, and I need to go back, as I've been advised by many now, including you, to go back and watch his 4th and 3rd year stuff when he was playing with Kolek, when he's off the ball more, because it doesn't take a genius to look at any stat sheet and see his 3-point percentage was awesome in that role, and it was less effective when he was dominant on the ball all the time. So that's kind of the goal that Pacers will have to blend, is getting him to be a better on-ball shooter. But a lot of pick and roll reps and a lot of very high effect in those plays, just as a guy who can finish, as like you said, a guy who has craft, good forward, we can get to defense later. And the jumper's pretty good. I never felt like he made stupid decisions. His turnover, most of his bad turnovers to me were just like guys sneaking up behind him or dribbling off his foot kind of stuff. So overall, like pretty impressed with specifically the stuff he did the most often, how he handled himself in those plays.
Absolutely. He's an awesome player. And like you said, his role changed a lot throughout college basketball. And that's something I value a lot for players you project as role players, having experience doing multiple things, especially the heavy on-ball roles. I think a lot of the role players who succeed in the NBA, I mean, look at Andrew Nembhard, or for example, who was a point guard throughout his time in college, just as an easy example, right? Obviously, he has more on-ball usage now, but he's not a primary on-ball player in the NBA, and he was in college. Cam Jones, primary on-ball player his last year at Marquette, an extremely good one of the best players in college basketball. He's not going to have that kind of responsibility in the NBA. Yeah. I think, like you said, the three-point shooting is like pretty easily explained by his just role, where Cam took more pull-ups than ever. He took more contested shots than ever because he was really the only guy creating for them. And he didn't have like a Tyler Kolek or an Oso Ighodaro to feed him easy shots like he has for much of his career. I mean, this was, his lowest percent of, or his highest unassisted rate on threes this year for sure by a mile. And then his highest unassisted rate at the rim. Absolutely. And kind of as you alluded to, like, despite the fact that he constantly created for himself off the dribble, his finishing is so weird. He's got such a wacky, like, interior scoring profile because he never ever.
Hold on. I have to cut you off. I have a Tony problem with the draft, with any player, any lefty. It just looks wrong. Even if it's a good player who puts the ball in the basket, I'm like, this looks wrong. It's like, it's fine for it. I ran into this problem out with Cameron. I'm like, ew, that looked gross. And it's like a totally normal jump shot that just happened to be left-handed.
Yeah, you got to mirror your screen and just see how you feel. I mean, again, like, people have pointed out, like, he's always been a poor free throw shooter, like below 70% in his career. But, like, I don't care. He shot 36.6% on 861 3-point attempts in college. I know he's a good shooter. With a lot of these prospects, we can lean on free throw percentage and per 100 possession volume and long twos to project when we don't have a sample, especially for like freshmen, one and done, even sophomores. We have more than a stable sample to show that Cam Jones is a good 3-point shooter. There is like It would be very surprising if he wasn't, because he's done this. Like, we have 861 attempts of proof that he can make threes in a variety of ways. And such a strange interior scoring profile, like I was saying. Never draws fouls. Career 14.5 free throw rate, which is extremely low, but one of the best finishers in the entire class. He was the second most efficient finisher in the half court this season of any guard, next to only Dylan Harper, who obviously was a top two pick on obviously tons of self-created. And as you said, he's not like a virtuoso passer who's manipulating defenders and, who's like throwing a bunch of high-level tight window reads, but he's an excellent decision maker and he takes care of the ball. His half-court assist-to-turnover ratio was 3, which is absolutely insane.
Right. Yeah.
The only player that was even kind of close was Kobe Sanders, who got drafted for the Clippers in the second round. He was at 2.56, so a canyon between him and second place. And he was also even if you don't filter out transition, he was also the only one above 3 assisted turnover ratio in the class. Like, incredible ball security, and I do think he's a very smart guy, trustworthy with the ball, and the fact that he has like the valuable experience, and was a good off-ball player next to Kolek, next to Iguodaro, are all just really positive signs. So offensively, he's kind of done everything you really want to project a guy favorably. And like I said, I had a really, for my scouting reports this cycle, I had to do comparisons for everyone. Cam Jones was one of the ones who I think I struggled with most to find a comparison that I thought was apt. And I still honestly don't really have one for him that I think makes total sense. Like, there's some similarity to like your Monte Morris, Tyus Jones type high assisted turnover rate, ball security guards. But I think Cam could be more dynamic as a creator than those guys. I don't know. He's a really weird one, and I don't have I think maybe he fell because it's hard to approximate him because he doesn't really look like players in the league. Older. But yeah, and of course he's older. He's 23, 23.3. Not like average aged senior, but right. Definitely not young. But, Cam is a good player right now. I don't think it's like, a thing where you need to project a lot of improvement. And it really is insane just like how much he had the ball this year. He was third in the entire draft class in back picks offensive load behind Nolan Traore and Cooper Flagg. He was 8th in the class in usage rate. He was 3rd in the class in assist rate. And despite that, he pretty much never turned the ball over, right? The fact that he was on the ball all the time. So super, super promising offensive profile. And like his defense is fine. Like, I don't think there's as much to talk about with his defense, but like, it's fine. I don't expect it to be a huge problem or a huge plus.
Okay, so shooting first. Just this last season where his responsibilities really changed, dribble jumpers or off the dribble jumpers, 14 for 72. That's not very good.
Great. Not great.
But his catch and shoots were great. 50 for 131. That's over 38%. You have to, and I think it's reasonable to, on a team with TJ McConnell, Andrew Nembhard, and Tyrese Haliburton for a while, and maybe Andrew Nembhard for a while, project that he will never be like the primary on-ball guy. So catch and shoot is somewhat important for his NBA prognosis, sure. Especially with the Pacers. And every year, even the years before with Kolek, he was good at that. So that's the part of his jump shot that I'll be the most curious about, is how much blend is there. But yes, sure. He was in the 99.6th percentile in terms of layup volume last year, and was in the 88th percentile.
Does he have any career dunks? I don't think he does.
He had no dunks last year. Let me check his.
He had 2 in 2024. He had 1 in 2023, and he had so he has 3 career dunks. Got it.
He's not like an upward athleticism guy, but to apply this to his defense, it's actually a great, unnecessarily good transition. He's got quicker feet, so like he's never like dead or away from his man or anything like that. He fights through screens pretty well. He's a little stocky for somebody who's fast, but like you, I was like, this is fine. He's like in front of his man a lot, but not like so resistant all the time. Never died on screens, but got screened a lot. I don't really know what to make of it yet, but none of the like big indicators this guy's going to be so disruptive, even though it wasn't bad.
I think, yeah, he's a willing defender. He tries, relatively hard for a guy who had a gigantic on-ball usage. And I think his effort on defense has been better in the past. And it wasn't bad this year by any means. He's always been a guy who has a pretty good steal rate, is able to create turnovers. I think his strength is an issue. That's something I worry about. Like he's an older guy who gets bumped off of his spot pretty easily. But like you said, he's laterally quick. His footwork is really good. I mean, obviously his footwork is great on offense. I think that does translate to some extent on defense where, he can stay in front of the ball. I think he has pretty nice instincts like jumping passing lanes and reading plays out. Seems like a guy who projects as a solid 1 to 2 positional defender, all right wingspan at 6'6" wingspan, 6'3". Like that's, all right for a guard defender. It's nothing particularly special, but it's also not so bad that you're going to get absolutely hunted and destroyed with him on the floor. And Cam is mostly an offensive prospect anyway, right? Like you're drafting Cam because he's an incredible offensive player and hopefully not a defensive liability. And I don't think he's going to be a defensive liability. Like there could certainly be matchups. Maybe, you get down the road to high level playoff games where there's problems, but we're talking about a second round pick here. Right. And I think I'm optimistic overall.
I don't see him guarding up 3, 4, 5 very well, which will limit his defensive abilities, but it's harder to project defense, certainly. Okay. I don't know how much you watched the Liberty Flames play college basketball, Ben Pfeifer. It seems.
Wait, I quickly wanted to just say that my one thing with Cam is I am curious to see how the finishing translates, because as incredibly efficient as he was, he's so reliant on scoops and floaters and runners and step throughs, and it's just he can't create a lot of easy stuff for himself at the rim. And I think some of that's going to balance out because he's not going to have to create so much stuff for him. He's going to get transition opportunities. He's going to get second side drives where he can get to the basket. Stuff he just wasn't able to do this year because he didn't have the teammates for it. But I am curious because I could imagine a world where Jones, isn't the elite finisher he's been across his career at the NBA level just because of the size and the length and the athleticism difference. But, I'm still obviously optimistic. That's just going to be one thing I'm keeping an eye on for his translation to the league.
He took 98 hook shots or runners.
Unbelievable.
What are these shots? What's going on? Everybody, quick break to talk about Skims. When I found out Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. I've heard so much about their quality from friends and family. I had to give it a try, and it lives up to the hype. Many people have issues with underwear, whether it's fit or comfort or just finding the right style. Skims changes all that. Their men's line offers something for everyone, from boxer briefs to classic briefs. It's all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. Whatever you choose, they're perfect for your day-to-day life. Their stretch 5-inch boxer brief. It's perfect for being your workout underwear at the gym, or being your missing link for your day-to-day existence, whether you're working out or just running errands. It's the most comfortable and reliable underwear you'll ever own. Plus, the lightweight material feels amazing, almost like you're wearing nothing at all. Shop SKIMS Mens at skims.com and let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select this show in the drop-down menu that follows. That is skims.com. Okay. I made you listen to me laugh out loud about guards with a 70+ true shooting percentage before we started. This kid who comes off the bench at Liberty and comes in. The only full game I have been able to find so far, and by the time I am done scouting Taelon Peter, I'll find more, was the NCAA tournament game he played against Oregon. He was not particularly awesome in that game, and yet it was immediately very clear what kind of player he is because of how he was being guarded by Oregon. He'd come in the game, Oregon would stick their best guard defender on him and be like, right on him. Don't move. If he runs around, stay right with him. And I was like, okay. He didn't finish plays particularly well in this game. He couldn't even get open. His first 2 stints, he didn't shoot. And I was still like, I understand what the theory of this player at 54 is.
I have been covering the draft for a long time. And I think this is one of, if not the first times, that a team took a player that I genuinely knew nothing about and had never even heard their name. I don't follow workouts as closely as I used to. And you mentioned I know he worked out for the Pacers. Maybe some international guys who get drafted late just because I don't dive as deep into that as some other people. But I was legitimately who is this person? And then I had people in my stream chat and one of my guests on my live talking to me about it. And I'm like, okay, I can see it. The most hilarious stats ever. Absolute. Yes. I mean, he's a pure play finishing small wing, right? He does absolutely nothing off the dribble. His assisted rate this year were just like through the roof. Pretty much everything he did was assisted. He took 7 shots away from the rim that weren't threes. Like we said, a Daryl Morey, like an absolute Daryl Morey special. This to me feels like the Terry Taylor, Alize Johnson, Enrique Freeman, Statty Darling.
The Pacers math special, baby.
This is legitimately just the next edition of that genre of late round pick, where it's like, yeah, this guy has some crazy like historical stat comparisons, and honestly, like you said with him, there's basically like nobody who looks like he does on the spreadsheet. But yeah, it's like unbelievably efficient player. High volume, off movement, 3-point shooter, looks like a pretty solid vertical athlete, doesn't turn the ball over, also doesn't really pass the ball. Like he's a pure finisher. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, seems like a potentially intriguing bet to take in the late second round. You know, I think he could be a cool summer league player, play in Fort Wayne, maybe. I don't know. I don't have a ton.
Whoa. You're 2 locations away. They have since moved from Fort Wayne to Indy and then Indy to Noblesville, sir.
I didn't even know that. Damn, I'm a fake fan.
A Noblesville boom legend, Taelon Peter incoming. So
when did they change the G League team name?
They changed from the Mad Ants to the Boom like 2 months ago.
Oh wow. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna excuse myself for not knowing that.
Yeah, that's fine. But I haven't gotten to call a player like a boom forward yet or anything like that. I'm looking forward to doing that. Okay, synergy, hilarious, right? 99th percentile points per possession on spot ups, 96th percentile points per possession in transition, 98th percentile points per possession on cuts, 99th on miscellaneous plays, which albeit was only 14 times. Just like efficiency through the freaking roof everywhere, and everything he did a lot. Money on these spot ups, almost all threes. And if you break it down to shot types like we did with Cam Jones, the catch and shoot numbers are just like, oh my God. He made 44.9% of his catch and shoot threes, 46% when unguarded, 53.8% on his dribble jumpers, albeit that was 7 for 13. But still, it's like, what is going on? Who is it? And if you've watched Liberty at all, and I remember this from the Darius McGee days when the Pacers brought him in on an E10, that team is just like spread three, like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
They're kind of like the Rockets.
They are an offense. They are an offense program.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, even though I think I'm looking at their defense was ranked higher than their offense this year. Interesting. But they were the 6th best 3-point shooting team in the country this year. 17th in 3-point attempt rate. That certainly fits what Peter seems to be.
Yes. Yes, it does. 92nd percentile on layups, 89th percentile on dunks, high school high jump state champ.
Yeah, he's super like easy, fluid, vertical athlete. Like clearly seems like again, flyer on an NBA athlete with a little bit of size who seems to be like a highly efficient complementary shot maker. Like there's worse swings to take in the late second round.
Well, that's the thing. Okay, shooting, sensational, awesome, 72.4% true shooting. Like I don't have to pitch that to anybody. Turnover rate's pretty low. It's kind of hard to find from watching him other things that I was like, oh wow, this is another thing that like I can easily project him developing pretty quickly or at some point in his NBA career, right? Like his awareness is kind of weird. Where like on defense, his head's on a swivel. Like I never thought like he was lost on defense or not paying attention, but at the same time on offense, he'd like run into his teammate on a cut or just mistime something in a way that was kind of goofy. He would catch the ball out, and if the shot wasn't there, he'd turn his back to the rim, which led to like some pokes and some stuff that it's just like, hey,
yeah, the dribbling is not.
Yeah, maybe don't do that.
NBA level.
You know? Yeah, that was kind of goofy. And unlike Cam Jones, and he is very athletic. Again, the dunks are real, but his side to side lateral speed is not sensational, which was defensively challenging a few times, especially when he got screened. But he was guarded so tight, and if you can make shots, great. You can find a role on a basketball floor, right? So his career will be fascinating. One, what extent does this shooting translate? But two, what other skills does he develop at all? Yeah. And does it even matter if he's this level of shot maker in the pros?
It's hilarious that the Pacers drafted maybe like the highest self-creation volume guy in the class and the lowest.
They are very opposite.
Cam was like literally everything he had to generate himself, and Taelon Peter was literally everything his team generated for him. But yeah, I mean, most late second round picks probably aren't going to stick, and Peter, history tells us, will be the same. But I think this is like a Howie Roseman quote where like he's like, in the seventh round or like late second for basketball, you should be taking weird guys. And Peter certainly fits that mold of just like a strange, unique profile where I like that. I like that general second round approach. Like, all right, we're just going to swing on this guy who's unusual. Right. And maybe he's going to end up being Fred VanVleet, or maybe he's just going to end up being some random guy that, sickos will remember down the line and be like a trivia question one day. Who knows?
He defended 39 pick and rolls, ball handlers this year, 31st percentile there. Like anything where he was guarding a pick and roll did not go particularly well. That they're going to like, that's ripe for a targeted guy, right? Not very many passes or assists like at all. And again, he was coming off the bench for this team, not because he wasn't good enough. The game he came in and I watched, he comes to the game and immediately the announcer goes, "Oh, look, there's sixth starter." So like that's clearly how they viewed him, but like 36 assists on the season. That's like barely over one a game, right? He has a lot of other, I think it's very clear just from his statistical profile, but even if you watch him, this is obvious. He has a lot of other skills he needs to develop. But he's like aware enough on defense that I think his team level stuff will work. And if you he's not going to have a 70% true shooting in the NBA, but like if you make shots to a reasonable extent, there is a role for you on the floor. So it's up to the Pacers now to get as much out of him as they can otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, his 72.8% true shooting, if we just kind of budget and translate it to the league,
it's hilarious.
Would have been by far, actually, no, not by far, by 0.5% over Daniel Gafford and then Jared Allen and Jackson Hayes. Centers. Yeah, I mean, the highest non-center true shooting in the league last year was Keon Ellis at 66.6%. Aaron Nesmith right up there as well, but
yeah. I don't think he'll be in the 70s. The draft is so fun because you get to dive in and see what guys are good at and see what guys are maybe not good at. And I finally had time to watch full games and not sound like an idiot, but I see the vision for both guys. I don't know if I think Kim Jones is a totally fine pick at 38. I don't know if I'm quite as high on him as you, but I think he's very good. And Taelon Peter, I have no idea. If he can't make shots in the pros, he's going to be a short career. If he can make shots in the pros, we'll see if the rest of the stuff develops. If you're listening to this still, everybody, please stop tweeting or commenting highlight tapes at me. Do not watch highlight tapes if you want any sort of feel for how good a player is. It means nothing. It's highlights. Of course they're going to look
highlight scouting is the best. I love highlight scouting.
Of course they look great.
Exactly what I did after Taelon got drafted. I'm like, all right, I'm so in. I'm so in. I tweeted some clips and I'm like, this guy rocks. Feel
like the first full game I watched was like one of his worst games of the season. Like they played Oregon and he did not play well. So I need to find another full length game.
Even then from like, I do think from, you can glean some stuff from like again, from like the Taelon Peter highlight tapes, he dribbles like 5 times in total. And there's like maybe one pass on there. So it's like, okay, yeah, you can kind of infer from what isn't
I feel that we're not making fun of him, to be clear.
No, absolutely not. Just kind of talking about the kind of, or trying to figure out the kind of player that he's going to be, because he's just such a unique seeming profile. Like it's just, there aren't a lot of players like, the general vibe. He's not as on ball. I don't know if you remember Tavion Kinsey, who went to Marshall.
I do remember that, man. Very recent, right?
Another 6'4", 6'5" play finishing wing, stupid athlete, but he develops like more on ball stuff in like throughout the rest of his college career. And obviously Peter only played one season one season and 6 games of D1, like in 2021, 2022. So very unique path. And I'm fascinated to see how his career pans out. But Cam, I'm really excited for, and I could absolutely see a world where Cam is a rotation player this year for the Pacers.
Well, get ready for Tyler Lundblade to break all your efficiency models, as we discussed before this. Ben,
it's a sick name.
The GOAT. Thank you very much for the time today. I'm glad we could do one draft pod this year, even though it.
Of course, I was going to say we had the magical run that was keeping us busy, and your coverage was fantastic. Very excusable that you didn't have time to grind some random SEC.
I had fun at least like watching enough lottery guys to have takes that I sent you. And every year I send Ben the same message at some point where I'm like, man, I'm just not as high on the top guys as everybody else. I never am.
No, you never are. No, you never are. But then you're like, okay, I like these guys.
And then like my fourth favorite player goes to the Bulls, and I'm like, dang it, now he'll never be as good as I think he could be. Shoot, maybe he'll be fine. We'll see. Tough year for the Tony East draft faves. Where can people find you and the things you say about the NBA, the draft, etc.?
Yeah, just on Twitter at BJPF_, on YouTube, which is just my name, Ben Pfeifer. Going to be doing some, summer type content, recaps of the season, maybe a little bit of post-draft stuff, lots of writing about, post-draft previews, high school AAU stuff this summer. But yeah, everything I do will be on my Twitter or my YouTube. So just give me a follow there if you want to keep up with the stuff that I do.
Advise. I'll be back tomorrow talking about Myles Turner's free agency and much more about the offseason.
If they don't let him, if they let him walk, it's going to be the worst day of my life.
That is not what my expectation is.
Good.
Yosi Goss will be here for that. The absolute best there is in the cap world. Thank you guys so much for listening today. Hope you learned something about the Pacers draftees. See you very soon.